you came into the Rangers in the mid-70s, late 70s.
Came in 1973.
And before that, you had been in, were you working in CID, Highway Patrol? Tell me about
I
that.
was a DPS trooper, graduated in '67 from the academy, and went directly after the graduation, went to Bryan College Station. And that's another funny story. Uh, I was stationed there, and one night, my telephone, only about a month or two there in Bryan College Station, and the Major Harry Hutchison, I believe, he called me on the telephone. And it shocked me that I got a telephone call from the Major. Scare you to death when you're a young trooper. Majors don't call, they hand it down the line to somebody else to call it. Anyway, he said, "Bruce, this is Harry Hutchison." I said, "Yes, sir, good evening, Major." Holding on the wall, keeping falling down, I think. He said, "I'd like to see you transfer back as a trooper." And he said, "Would you take that assignment if I asked you to do it?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Okay." He said, "There'll be paperwork in the mill." Well, I thought, I'm sure all these people know about this, and didn't get too excited until the next night. I think I was riding with my partner that you had to ride with back in those days. And I told him the story, and he said, "Have you told the sergeant about this?" I said, "No, I just assumed that everything from captain to lieutenant all the way down to my sergeant would know about this." He said, "I don't think Paul knows about this." So I called the sergeant, and that was the maddest guy I've ever seen in my life. And I said, "Sergeant, I apologize because I just assumed you knew about this already, along with all the other chain of command from the major down." He said, "I didn't know about it, and I'm not happy about it." But I wanted to be a Texas Ranger, and I knew that being a polygraph examiner had great experiences for someone like me or anybody else going into the Rangers. And a funny story about being a polygraph examiner. I think it's Austin PD had a guy they were bringing in. Like, I don't even remember the crime, but I remember he came in and he's a young guy. And I got a briefing from the law enforcement people about whatever the crime was. And he was sitting in the polygraph chair. And I walked in, and he said, "Sir," he said, "I want to tell you something. This is the first time I've ever had a polygraph examination. I'm scared." I said, "Well, this is the first time I've ever given one." Well, that didn't go over very well either, but I wanted to tell him the truth. And I was about as nervous as he was, but it worked out all right. He was truthful, as we say.
So you were very seasoned by the time the Ranger promotion came up in law enforcement.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I took the test, I was selected. I don't remember how the list came out, but I was one of the top 3 or whatever it was, I think, that made Ranger at that time. And then, where did I go? Went straight to Harlingen, to the Valley. Initially, I said, well, I'll be here maybe. John Wood, the captain, my captain at that time in San Antonio, loved that guy to death also. John said, "I don't want you to go down to the Valley and tell me within a year you're looking for a place out of there." He said, "I need somebody to stay in the Valley." And the people, the Anglos that had gone to the Valley, they wanted out. They wanted to go back to Paris, or they wanted to go East Texas, back out of the Valley. The culture is so different down there. And after I had been there a year, I had developed some good friends, police officers. Initially, it takes some patience. Some of those individuals in law enforcement, that this is my country, and we don't need any Texas Rangers down here. I went to a small town there one day after a few months being there to interview this chief of police, just to tell him that I'm here if you need me for anything. I'm not such a hot shot, but I can bring a lot of resources with me to help on anything that needs to be done here. And do you know, within a month or two, the guy called me. He said, I got a pretty bad burglary over here. Would you mind coming over and see if there's anything you could do with it? And I'm not sure I did anything at all. I went over and made pretty good friends with the guy, surprisingly.
So 10 or 11 years down in the valley, and then from the valley, where did y'all head?
I made sergeant and came to San Antonio. And you know, I really had no interest in being, I loved doing what I was doing. And, but I had developed diabetes. And I was having a terrible time with diabetes. And you can ask my wife, she knows better than anybody about that. Ruby,
She's quite the lady, isn't she? I know she is.
you know, I never did have any desire to become. Everybody said I set goals. I didn't set any goals. My goal wasn't to be the commander of the Texas Rangers. It really wasn't. I enjoyed doing, I was just happy to be a Ranger and proud that I was able to be a Texas Ranger. And things just fell in place for me in my life. And it happens to some people and some people it doesn't. And there's a hell of a lot of good qualified people that could be doing the same job out here. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But anyway, I was lucky. I guess I'd have to say lucky as I could be for things to fall out like it did. And I thank God every day for that.
What it means to be a Ranger?
Well, it means that I have, and what always pleased me was seeing the families of victims, I guess, make all the difference in the world. And I'm proud of what I did, and I enjoyed what I did, even though it was terrible. And a lot of people always ask me, with all the bad people you met, does that change your perceptive analysis on life? I said, no, it doesn't. There's too many good people. There are really too many good people in this world. And sometimes they'll stumble and fall, but most of them are pretty good folks. They really are.